I have another one-man protest story. Yeah, I typically have my coffee rationed at, I stop at a gas station and get what used to be $1 cup of coffee 2 years ago. I now spend $2.45, or depending on who's working, I may not have to pay for it because I'm there every single morning, and I'm joyous. So anyway, talking about another interaction at my least favorite Starbucks. I got my favorite Starbucks where they welcome me with open arms, and I have some nice connections and conversations with people over there. They know my first name because, I pop up on the screen, I think, with Uber stuff and get greeted with my name. And, I know if they don't greet me personally, they may get written up. So, of course, I take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, so to give you some background, for those of you that have studied the Enneagram, I'm a 5. And I came from, and it's an incredible tool. I'm likely to discuss it quite a bit because it's made a huge impact on my life and my thinking and the direction I've gone. But to learn the authenticity of me and the work I've done and the direction I've headed, or I hope anyway, because I use the Dunning-Kruger effect on all of my thinking, emotions, and questions. It's like, should I be thinking that way? But I'm a 5 who is typically known for being very disconnected from their bodies, their emotions. I've been beat up for my inability to express emotion, since high school, and, through our emotional development nonsense with therapy and the S training way back in high school, and the work I've done to be the authentic person I am with emotions and being an extrovert. And I know 5s can be an extrovert in a role that they're playing as a character they get down. But what I'm doing is not a role. It is spontaneous. Because when I go into a location, I do think about what I'd like to say, how I can bring joy to their day, put a smile on their face. But I also know if I walk in and force that presentation, it's not authentic. You got to read the room and where they are, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm a risk taker forever. Sales, I smoke cigarettes, that and pot are my two big addictions. Self-destructive behavior that I have not yet been able to resolve and dissolve. But I'm not the typical 5 you will find in the world. So anyway, my least favorite Starbucks over at the Endicott Plaza here, it's actually less my least favorite. It used to be my least favorite because it seemed like they were entitled to me tipping and my tip. My position on that is I think, yes, they should be making a living wage, but when I spend $3.48 on a cup of coffee, I'm spending millions of dollars on their CEO that's making these fucking baristas right on a cup because somebody felt warm and fuzzy when their barista wrote on their cup eons ago. When I spend my $3.48 and I'm homeless and I'm living dollar to dollar and, counting pennies and rubbing nickels together, I can't also pay the baristas a living wage. And I find Starbucks disgusting. They're not sitting down at the negotiating table. And so I brought out the win that the unions just had, where Starbucks had to pay $36 million to 15,000 employees, union employees, far exceeding the dues that those people have paid for the attorneys to fight the good battle and get them money back. So I talk about unions, and sometimes it goes over well because you can't tell who the manager is, because as I understand it, they're basically a barista, and 8 hours a week they do managerial stuff. And this is the location where I got my favorite response, where the woman and you know, what if I actually glitched like in the Matrix, and the woman that actually did glitch. So after the union win, I mentioned it to one of the baristas there, who I now know is a manager there, which I couldn't imagine because I also know her from the Peabody Diner, which is another excellent restaurant in town here. So here she is, a manager at Starbucks, and has to have a second job waitressing. The poor woman's got to be working 50, 60 hours a week. And she's probably still concerned about some bill somewhere, or paying the rent, I don't know. Or maybe she's well off working 80 hours a week, and never having a life outside of that. Because I mentioned the win that the union had, and she immediately gave me a harsh response of, this location is not interested in unions. And she's a foreigner, like everybody in this country. So I wasn't sure, I didn't know what to make of it, if she was a manager or not, because at that point I didn't know her response. I wasn't sure if it was a cultural thing, if she grew up under socialism and didn't, I don't know. But today I go in there, and I get greeted friendly by this barista, and I asked for my coffee, and I said, in solidarity with baristas, please don't write on my coffee. And she looked at the woman that gave me the union response and got permission to not write on my coffee. But I could tell by the smirk on the barista, she appreciated it, and I did reiterate in solidarity with baristas. So that's what I do. I'm worth supporting. So I have a lifetime of what I think is good thinking, progressive thinking, and I now have a view from the bottom up. I follow, some brilliant thinking people, and, they're the 1%, the influencers that have the ability to make the difference. Like Scott Galloway talked about, talking to his buddies, not, in the 1%, 10% of not spending money to have their voice heard, to, shake up the cages, whatever. And I'm thinking, yes, that's reasonable. We're likely going to have to crash and burn before people wake up to a culture that works, a society that looks out for each other. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I watched the other video, and it was surprisingly coherent, so I'm just going to keep on going. Yeah, so, the other Starbucks that I've been most welcomed in, there's one guy I've talked union, we talked, he was into it. I don't know if he doesn't give a shit about being fired or not, but it was in front of what appears to be the manager. And, I'm making all these contacts, I'm making all these, relationships, building out a network, but I've got no ability to produce, or I haven't found it yet. Would love I would love to be an extension of the progressive movement of Max at UNFTR, Midas Touch, Status Quo, Scott Galloway, Prof G, Raging Moderates, parroting what it is that you're saying. I agree with what you're saying, and it needs to be gotten to other people. And yes, I'm an old white guy that saturates a lot of the media, but I have a unique perspective, being a homeless boomer, and viewing from economics from the bottom up. And it's like, fuck not spending money, fuck waiting on policy. I'm going to be dead and gone before anything happens. And so many others are going to be just waste. It's a mess. We don't have time to wait. Shake it up from the bottom. I was over at the Home Depot in Salem. There's where all the brown people hang out for work. It's actually a perfect location, and it's not that I don't understand the liabilities of businesses, and that rules you don't understand often come from something you would understand if you knew it. They were doing a crackdown, kicking them out. There were numerous unmarked police cars, marked police cars. I did my little bit of protesting, and knowing that the consequences would just be getting trespassed from the parking lot. So yeah, I'm trespassed from the Shaw's parking lot in Shaw's for a year for standing up with brown people looking for work at the people leaving Home Depot. And it's in a shopping mall, strip mall type with Market Basket. There's 4 or 5 fast food places. There's the Shaw's. If there was a way to get a flash mob from that section right there, we could have put a fucking stop to that, made national news, and started a movement across from the bottom up. But you got the bottom up that are just so fucking desperate to get by day to day. They can't lose their jobs. They can't lose the $30. They can't support them in doing it. Support the general strike from the bottom up. Do something like Mark Cuban with mechanics. The death mobiles that are on the road of all these poor people is, for one, it's dangerous and puts their lives and others' lives in risk. Accounts for undue stress. It's a good masculine, manly thing to do. You got a lot of young boys out there that would love to do mechanicking, even if all they did was bust a couple of knuckles, get their fingers dirty, hang around with men doing manly shit. And when I talk about that, I also include women. There is a difference between men and women, masculine, feminine, and all that controversy, but I welcome the masculinity of women. And when I talk about the gender, I talk about it as a man because I'm a man. I understand it more. There's no way I could understand what it is for a woman. But you're welcome to come along, develop your masculinity, and if nothing else, you will gain a lifetime of maintaining your own vehicle or talking intelligently about your car with a mechanic. Start a trade school with it. Do it as a men's club. Do it as a union. Do it as collaborative businesses. Give economic opportunity to a segment that could alter, that would just shake up the fucking industry, shake up the world, shake up everybody's lives. There is not a person out there that does not rely on a vehicle. So again, I want to make my mark. I want to spread the joy. I have a lot of heart, thinking, and solutions. Joy to the world. Thanks so much. I'm going to have to watch this and see if I rambled on too much or how much I like it. I actually liked the other one, and yes, I felt like I lost my train of thought several times. And I notice I use the word hypothesis. You'll find, because I'm self-taught, I look back, I graduated high school before MCAS or any of the standardized testing, and they'd pretty much graduate anybody that they thought might work out in the world or just had no hope of working out in the world either. So I'm self-taught. A lot of what I learn is read. I didn't, do the college thing. I thought I was too dumb for schoolwork till I did an associate's degree program when I was 30, 32, and says, yeah, no, I'm actually kind of smart. So anyway, I'm going to sign out. Joy to the world. Peace, love, harmony to everybody.